part of the Podesta, David Brock, Donna Brazil team. He had a heart attack. So we have the two Davids and the two Chucks. Two Chucks dying, one David dying, one David nearly dying. And in a week of strange symbolism. Now, as we've been talking about the wiretap stuff, and now apparently it appears that indeed Donald Trump was wiretapped. As we talk about that and move further into this whole idea about surveillance and all the other very important pieces, and I think that the surveillance thing is huge, and when Trump was running for president, I said if he gets elected, get ready for the surveillance state. So this guy made it very clear that this is what was important, and that we needed more information. But the premise of that is a false premise, because it's all based upon some kind of bullshit war on terror, which doesn't really exist unless 3 or 4 countries in the world aren't producing or co-producing the terror events. And no, those countries are not countries like Somalia. No, they don't. No, they don't. Or Pakistan. No, doesn't happen. Afghanistan. No, the countries in question are the true progenitors of these fear-based, terror-related events. And we know who those countries are. And I'm speaking in one of them right now. You see, because this is the false paradigm. This is the false premise, the false narrative. That we need more info on people for a bullshit war that we started, we created, and continue to create. Now, how's that for logic? How is that for logic? Because really what they want is they want to make sure that the people who are waking up, of course, they want to keep tabs on us. That's the bottom line. It's not about keeping us safe. Their argument is, well, just think of all the terror events that didn't happen because of us. Okay. Well, if that is true, then wouldn't arrests and detentions and all those things, wouldn't those things be a lot more public? It's kind of like when humans are very primal, and we haven't really traveled too far from our primal roots. But if you were out and you were part of a tribe and you were conquering another tribe, wouldn't you want something to show for it? Wouldn't you want to carry somebody's scalp around, or their head, or, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, look what happened. Look what we did. Woohoo! We're some badasses, aren't we? That's really what it's about. I mean, look at us. It's power. It's all about power. Public relations. Marketing. Who'd ever thought that this severed heads on spears would be equated with marketing? But it is. It is the most primary form of marketing. So the reason I'm bringing it up is, if that's the case, then if these guys had made big arrests, wouldn't they kind of be parading them around? Hey, look, the heads on the sticks that we have. We just got this guy and this guy and this guy, and nobody ever goes to trial. Have you noticed that? For all these people theoretically that they catch, nobody ever goes to trial. The Tsarnaev kid did. That's about it. Nobody ever goes to trial. Nobody ever stands before a court of law, has to open their mouth, and of course Tsarnaev couldn't open his mouth because they cut his vocal cords. Because people ever got in front of a judge and a jury and some cameras, they might talk. They might say a few things. Nobody ever goes to trial. So we have a system where huge amounts of information are gathered. The premise being that terror events are being stopped, and yet we never see the chest thumping and crowing and, hey, we got the guy. The only time we ever had that was with fake Osama bin Laden. So we know what the real use of that surveillance is, and yet these events still happen. Well, the reason they happen is because they're created, and there are versions of the creation. One version is that they just don't happen. They're staged events, false flags, and they are looking like Sandy Hook. I still think it's really weird that Suzanne Collins, who is the author of The Hunger Games, and Bruce Jenner / Caitlyn Jenner are both from Sandy Hook. I think it's really strange. Remember when I first looked at that, first pop, I said, you got to be kidding me. And it got even stranger when Bruce Jenner decided to flip the switch. It's now Caitlyn Jenner. So then there's the other version of the event where there are patsies. And you get the FBI, the CIA, or the MI6, and they infiltrate. They will infiltrate groups. They'll go to a mosque or they'll do something, and they'll get these guys with IQs of about 85 or 90, and they'll convince them that this is going to happen. They need to be a part of it, and they get them all like fired up, and they go out and they do it. And oh, hey, we know this is going to happen. So that sometimes they'll do that and they'll catch the person. Of course, they never stand trial, or if they do, we never see it. Or if that's the case, sometimes they'll actually maybe let them do it. Depends on if they want to push the button and go live. But it's all manufactured. I mean, even if we look at the fact that perhaps this was a real event, it's still manufactured. It's still completely manufactured. You ask yourself, well, how is it? Well, first of all, it's manufactured because for some reason, whatever the reason that is, the one or two or three guys who decided that they were going to spend their life in eternity with virgins moved on it. But why did they move on it? Well, first of all, they have to be there. You can't have a terror attack in your own country. Second of all, in order to be there, there'd have to be some displacement. Somebody would have to, be displaced from where they live. And if there's displacement, there'd have to be an event that would have caused a displacement. And those events are generally not acts of God. They're not earthquakes. They're not tsunamis. They're not hurricanes. They're not, what they are is they're wars. They're clandestine wars that decimate populations, create huge amounts of destruction to the infrastructure, and leave a bunch of people bloodied and homeless. So therefore, they have to find a new place to go, a new place to live, and a new place to act out whatever kind of rage, resentment, frustration, bitterness, fueled by an ideological dogma that says, go forth. Take care of the heathen. That's manufactured. It's all manufactured. One way or another. Very rarely is somebody moved by the organic spirit. Because that's just, even if you are being programmed by these radicalized imams, the notion of the human spirit and the human being the biological entity known as a man and a woman is to create, procreate, have a family, protect and defend, but not be transformed into a murderous tribe of zombies. Although I suppose with enough programming and enough hatred and all that stuff, it can be done. We've seen what happens to the best of us after we've been mortared and shellacked again and again and again, and what we could turn into, which is unfortunate and not a great commentary on the state of the world in general. While all this is going on, of course, the Pizzagate stuff gets pushed further and further and further, deeper and deeper and deeper into the memory hole. So we're not really thinking about it as much, talking about it as much. It's all about the wiretapping, and now about 322. You know what's interesting is if you go back into the 1970s, which was the golden age of terrorism, where there were real terror groups. I remember growing up in the 70s and hearing about the Bader Meinhof gang. It's like, wow, the Bader Meinhof gang. The Japanese Red Brigade. Carlos the Jackal. Even Muammar Gaddafi. That was the goal. That was when I'm telling you, man, that's when there was real terror in the world. Real manufactured terror. Not this fake manufactured terror bullshit. That Carlos the Jackal. Nobody, they just don't. I mean, Carlos the Jackal used to put on disguises, and he had 15 passports, and he spoke 6 different languages, and he was trained in Moscow and raised in revolutionary South America, born and bred on the ideals of Che Guevara, and those are real terrorists, not these fake, phony, cutout terrorists of today. Oh man, I'm going to get in trouble over this podcast, I think. But no, it's true. I mean, it's true. I mean, that's what I grew up with. And you guess who the target of the terror was in the 1970s? It was Israel. It was Israel. People were pissed off. They were pissed off that Israel had come in and taken that land and started a few wars, and they were not happy. Not happy. So now who are the terror events? Who are they aimed at? It's not Israel. The Palestinians, who knows? They may fire like a shitty little rocket from the other side of the wall. It may not even be theirs, and all of a sudden it's a blitzkrieg to turn Gaza. Time travel them back to the 15th century, just lay waste to it. But none of these events are ever geared at Israel. It's the U.S., UK, blah, 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 Paris. Never. Mm-mm. And I'm not saying they should. I'm not advocating that terrorists do that. It's just for the one country in that region, this seems to be the most destabilizing, to be honest with you. And I know not every single Israeli is down with the program. I get it. I totally get it. Just like when we have presidents here in this country that we don't see eye to eye with. Not everybody's down with Donald Trump. Not everybody was down with Barack Obama. Not everybody was down with George Bush. I totally get it. I'm sure there are a few Russians that are not really happy about Vladimir Putin, but I'm sure they also keep their mouths shut. I don't think they say a lot about it. But that's the country where there's the most